I'm very grateful for that moment in my life because it really forced me to unlearn many of my conditioned effects, but also challenge a lot of concepts about what leadership is, in my professional life, and starting to really go deeper within and start to listen to another voice in my head, which was not only the logical mind, but the intuitive mind and the heart. I had to start to listen to that other voice inside, and to connect really with my body and to start understanding and unwinding the wisdom of my own body and my cycles and the feminine flow, so to speak.
Hello, love. Welcome to the Sacred Purpose Podcast, a place where we illuminate your innate wisdom and help you embody your soul's calling. I'm your host, Lisa Malia, midwife, breast cancer survivor, and mama of 3, turned nonprofit CEO and embodiment coach. We're each on a unique path to live our sacred purpose, but we don't need to walk it alone. Through the power of connection, feminine wisdom, and embodied leadership, we can elevate our lives, communities, and businesses. Each week, I'll bring you transformative stories, practices, and rituals to support you in trusting and following your intuition, creating space to live a life of sacred purpose with deeper clarity and unapologetic joy as we reimagine and envision a new way forward. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Today, I get to sit down with my dear friend, Alejandra Torres. She and I have known each other for many years now and have been able to witness and support each other's work over these last few years. I got to know her originally through a mastermind that we had both joined, and we immediately connected, as we did with all the women in that circle at the time, but really have nourished that relationship and that friendship over the years, and still to this day, witnessing and supporting each other's visions in any way that we can. And even though she lives in Colombia and I'm here in the United States, there's so many parallels to our journeys and the visions that we have for this world, even though that they are being implemented in different ways through our work. This concept of embodied leadership and feminine wisdom and bringing our visions to form and giving them life in this world today as we create this new way forward with regenerative processes and regenerative systems and caring and nourishing for our bodies in regenerative ways. And so this conversation really brings into form all the concepts that I've shared in some of the previous episodes and in the work that I have come going forward to really understand the deeper meaning behind this. And I really look to Alejandra as somebody who is a beacon for this new way forward. She has been living this and breathing this and really alchemizing this new way forward, embodying feminine leadership, using that wisdom, bringing in all the energy and lessons from the past, using grief as a catalyst to bring her into deeper enlightenment and really bring this vision of supporting and mentoring women as we learn to lead in this new way. And she just does it in such a beautiful, artistic, meaningful way that I think she's an example not only to me, but somebody that we can all learn and benefit from as a guidepost and somebody who's a torchbearer for this, leading us through in this new way, to helping us navigate how we do this and how we bring it into form. So those are just some of the really juicy questions I get to sit down and ask her and share with you today. Let me go ahead and introduce Alejandra, but before I do, I want to tell you about an embodied leadership immersion program that I have coming up. It will be in February. There will be a link to the show in the show notes today for you to go ahead and sign up and get on the wait list so that you get all the information on that immersion as it comes out so that you can go ahead and sign up and enroll and really deepen into this new practice with me. It's going to be a 4-day experience and it's going to be so nourishing, regenerative, reformative, transformative, and all the things. I really hope that you join me there. So again, just go sign up, get on that wait list, and then you'll be the first to know when those spots open up to join us for this embodied leadership immersion. Alejandra Torres Dromgold is a multi-passionate entrepreneur driven by her vision for a more compassionate, equitable, and sustainable world. She's taken leading roles in the reinvention of several organizations, starting with growing her family business, Contempo, from a small company to one of the world's leading for-benefit corporations, establishing the Colombia Green Building Council, and serving on the board of World Green Building Council. After co-founding the Family Business Network in Colombia, she went on to head the Ministry of Environment International Affairs Office, where she secured an unprecedented $100 million in global support for the Amazon rainforest. Alejandra has been brought on to advise, fundraise, and negotiate for environmental conservation projects with the World Bank of Bogotá, the Nature Conservancy, the SDGs, the Green Climate Fund, the Minamata Convention, and several social impact businesses. Her latest project is Musas, an online community, academy, and investment fund designed to uplift women in their leadership and regenerative entrepreneurship. She is a participant in Shark Tank Colombia, through which she is seeding new female-led sustainable businesses. Through her belief that business can be a force for real change, Alejandra is passionate about supporting social businesses, building stable foundations to thrive and make our world a better place. Let's dive in. Hi, Alejandra. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I just love speaking with you as always, and it's wonderful to be part of this podcast that you are putting together with such beauty and grace. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. That means so much to me coming from you. It's such a joy for me to have you here. I wanted to let you have an opportunity to introduce yourself to our listeners today. You and I go way back, and so I have a hard time knowing where to begin. And I know that you live such a full life, and so I would love for you to just let us know where you're at and what you're up to, and just introduce yourself before we dive into this beautiful conversation.
Well, yes, it's really great to be here with everyone and share a bit of my story. I was born and raised in Bogotá, Colombia. Bicultural background. My mother's from the United States, from Missouri, and my father was from a small town in Colombia. So as I grew up, I always felt that I was kind of in between two worlds, and I was able to have a pretty global perspective, which was a really good way to grow up, kind of feeling that there were no boundaries, that the world was out there to be explored. And so very early on, I started studying abroad. I studied in the US, I worked in New York, and I started in finance. But then over time, I felt I've had several breaking moments in my life where these have been, I would guess, I call them like truthful moments, where life has just showed me that this path is no longer akin to my soul. And I believe I've always been very driven by my soul and my purpose. And I haven't really known what it was for years. So I kind of first started out in finance, then I did a career move to environmental world, and I worked in the government and also in NGOs for environmental conservation. And then about 7 years ago, I had another major kind of transformational crisis and process where I had a health issue, a health crisis that made me kind of stop in my tracks and go very deep within and start healing my divine feminine, which I had not really before known what it was, or how to nurture that side of me. And so after living this process over a series of like almost like 9 months was that, which is very symbolic of an own like rebirth process. I emerged again into the world, and I decided to create what is now my passion and purpose, which is feminine leadership programs. And I created an academy and community for women called Musas, Musas is Spanish for muse, which is that archetypal, creative, intuitive, feminine energy. And Musas has been around now for about 5 years. And from there, we create online programs and retreats and masterminds. And now in the last phase of Musas is more like an entrepreneurial stint and investing. And so I've started to create an investment, a seed capital fund for regenerative female-led business.
See, this is why I don't even know where to begin. You're so speaking my language, my heart, my soul, everything just lights up. I mean, talk about moments of truth and clarity and big transformational moments in your life. And, you know, the health crisis, I so relate to that. You know, I've had one of my own, and those can be so, I mean, so transformative. They are an actual crisis. They are absolutely so challenging and heart-wrenching to get through, but they do gift you with some very certain clarity about what is truly meaningful to you and how you've been able to use that and really take that time to heal. And the 9-month incubation period that you gave yourself or felt, you know, you had is, I mean, again, what a beautiful number and process to go through when you're evolving into this more feminine way of being. And I'm curious what that means to you. And for our listeners who are listening to that, who might not get what that looked like for you. How did you apply that? How did you even tap into that? How did that look different from what you were doing before and to now when you were able to integrate that?
Oh, yes. I love that question, because when I started my own process, I didn't really know what feminine energy was. Basically, I started out just learning to be very in my action-based energy, which is the archetypal masculine energy. I was being led by logic and kind of rational mind to make decisions. I had been in several leadership roles where I had to be the executor and like very focused on impact, on obtaining, you know, the indicators and all this. So I was very much like in that kind of masculine, impact-driven energy. And I didn't realize that I was depleting myself when I was in that energy. You know, there were a lot of, you could say, side effects of being in that masculine energy. And those were health side effects, you know, burnout, feeling overwhelmed, feeling a lot of stress and anxiety, and eventually leading to this health situation that I had that was kind of a calling to get into my body and start really like deconstructing that excess, you know, of action and impact. And also it was about my relationships were I think not as profound, you know, because since I was more focused on getting everything and, you know, even like achieving and being very hard on myself, you know, to always be achieving and doing. My relationships were like secondary. And I didn't nurture them as much. I didn't know how to receive love. I was very giving, but not in a receptive mode. So you could see it like 360-degree view that I was unbalanced, way too much in my masculine. And I didn't know what the feminine was even. I didn't know how to create. I felt unbalanced. I felt kind of also dried out and anxious and just kind of like on a depletion track and not supported, you know, like everything has to be me and that, you know, very action based. And I'm the one who has to hustle and obtain results, but not without feeling truly supported by those around me or by my team and so I had to stop. Basically, the life brought me to an abrupt halt. And that was the only way that I could to really stop that overdrive and that more, like that never is enough, right? Energy.
Oh, I so relate to that. That's exactly the only thing that stopped me was that I had no choice. Because when you're in that survival mode, when you are in it, you're so committed to it. You really do believe that you've just got to keep delivering. You've got to keep showing up. And there's part of you that knows that this isn't sustainable, but you think, well, just after the next thing, after the next thing, after the next thing. And, you know, eventually the universe comes calling again and again, and it will find a way to stop you. At least that's what's happened to me. And it sounds like that's what happened for you too.
Yes. Definitely. It was a halt. And I felt for a while it was scary to be faced with that, situation, because it comes in the form, I guess, because we're so used to not listening to those callings when they're more subtle. Sometimes it does take a big calling for us to stop. And I'm very grateful for that moment in my life, because it really forced me to unlearn many of my conditioned effects, but also challenge a lot of concepts about what leadership is, in my professional life, and starting to really go deeper within and start to listen to another voice in my head, which was not only the logical mind, but the intuitive mind and the heart. I had to start to listen to that other voice inside, and to connect really with my body, and to start understanding and unwinding the wisdom of my own body and my cycles and the feminine flow, so to speak. And it took some time. It's kind of like learning a new language or learning how to dance. It takes practice.
It really does. And what you touched on just a little bit earlier was that ability to receive and that ability to feel supported and be supported, which I know was also something that was really hard for me to not only to receive it, but even maybe ask for it. It was so foreign to me to say that I might even need support. Even if it was being offered, I just wanted to be like, no, I've got this. I'm okay. I'm good. And how to even receive it. And then a step further, even maybe ask for it. Like that, it's huge for, I think, most women who feel like they always need to be taken care of. And like you said, it is more of a masculine energy, although someone would say, no, I'm a caregiver, I'm a caretaker, I'm giving. But really you're depleting, and you're not receiving any of that back and relaxing into that support that's available also.
Yes. And allowing others to love you and kind of losing the control. I think control is a big issue.
Oh, yes.
For us as women and as leaders. And, I was taught, I was like the good girl, growing up. I was like the one with the good grades and having to control everything, right? And learning early on that control was necessary and required. And although some of it is important, we do it with, sometimes it's important, but it really, when you control so much, you're not allowing the energy to flow into your life, to really nurture yourself and flow with the universe, and feeling like there's a larger energy that is holding you, that has your back, and feeling that you can relax into life and open up and be receptive and much more creative, intuitive, makes you much more open to seeing new possibilities. So it's actually an incredible way to achieve results from that place, from that balance between the masculine and the feminine, so it's a long, I think, a lifelong learning process.
Yes. And I feel like this is about the point where our paths crossed, that you and I both signed up to work with Nisha and in her mentorship program. And we got to dive into this community of sisterhood and really get to experience what that was like in real life. I think, I don't know if you can relate to this, but for me, it was what I felt was possible, but I hadn't actually experienced yet, to have a community of sisterhood where there was true witnessing and support without the judgment and competition, and just embodied love and support in feminine leadership, and helping hold each other's visions while we kind of figured out this new way of being, if in a way. And
yes. I so relate to what you're saying. I didn't know, I think when I was in my masculine energy, I lived in a very competitive environment with other women, and I had not had the trust or to allow myself to open up in a women's circle. I was even a bit skeptical at first. I was scared to go into that space. And for me, it was such a profound experience. It was so healing. As you said, like over time, how we kept like deepening that connection and helping each of us impact even more and reach a new level of leadership and impact. And it was amazing. And the fact that it comes from that feminine energy of connecting. I feel that ancestrally we are wired as women to hold circle and to really create this like more systemic, holistic approach to leadership. And it's been kind of forgotten and shunned a bit from the mainstream society. So bringing back that experience of circle and of feminine leadership from that collaborative and inclusive space. Yeah. So I just loved it. And in Musas, it's really one of the key components of every program we teach is that we have circles and that women really go so deep into their processes and they feel so witnessed and supported. It really breaks a lot of paradigms we have about female leadership.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, we are so aligned in that way. And I bring that into as many spaces as I can, in the way that I work as well, because it is like you said, it's in our DNA. This is how a message from our ancestors. It creates a sense of community, of safety, of belonging. And I believe when you can harness that collective intention too, it just brings more clarity and insight and wisdom and depth to what it is you are either faced with or challenged with or celebrating or grieving, whatever it is. It just feels like a space like that can actually hold all of it, even at the same time. And just to be able to, like I said, for me, it feels like we're just holding each other's visions along the way. And you just have this network that's just, it's built in. And, I know you and I are in different countries and, doing different work, but in the same way, and just forever connected though. I mean, we've got to go on some beautiful retreats together. And
oh yes,
I just, watching where the work that we do and where we are now, and just knowing that connection will never change no matter what happens. Like, we are sisters forever.
Yeah, yes, definitely. It's amazing. Like feeling that resonance, even though we can come from different backgrounds and countries and cultures, is so reaffirming too. It's just incredible. So when I do circles, I do them in Spanish with women from various countries, in Spain, in the US, in Chile, like in different countries. And they're all amazed. They're like, wow, you can be 20 years older than I am and like across the ocean, and still there is so much in common. There's so much resonance. So I think that's very healing.
Yeah, I think there's a real craving for that now, especially in this time of great uncertainty. And what they're calling here in the US, I'm not sure if they're calling it this in Colombia, but the Great Resignation, where people are really just in mass leaving their jobs. They're really realizing that this system has been broken and they don't want to be a part of it anymore. They really do want to answer that soul's calling. And like you and I have experienced with a health crisis, we're experiencing this in a collective level now. And so what a more beautiful way than to have a community and a sisterhood to fall into as you navigate this new way forward together.
Oh, yes. And I think there's such a calling now to create, for us who are, I would say, blessed to have those soul's callings, however uncomfortable they may be. Once you transition from, the dark night of the soul and you go through that process within, you start finding so much more clarity as to what is that next step. And I really think that as female leaders, we are called to bring in new projects. We are called, I think, historically at this time, to create the new structures and create new projects that are going to heal the world and be regenerative and create, a more equitable world, a more sustainable world. I think, the feminine, also the energy of the feminine, is an energy that is connected to everything. So we feel the connection to our ecosystems and to our communities. So it is so important right now to connect, for men and women, I believe, to connect and honor that feminine, and from that place create the new projects that we so much need.
Yeah.
So that's why I think entrepreneurship is so important right now. It's really the transformational step we need to take. It's also part of like not delegating your power to the system anymore and not going and working somewhere else, but really up like embodying and living your purpose and what you want to create. So it's a very big opportunity, I think, to create new things.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, I don't even know how to describe this. You have such a way and such a gift, more than anybody I've known, to be able to actually give what I would say form to your vision. Like, it's one thing to have a vision, and it's another thing to actually bring it to life. Like, you bring life to your visions. I've seen you create and deliver and give birth to so many things. Like, any one of these things on their own would be a massive, successful, impactful offering. And I can't do justice by trying to even name them all, but I know that you've had, your nonprofit, you've had your family art museum, you've had, I know you do so much work in the community aside from the work you do in Musas, and then even elevating that experience for the women to help female entrepreneurs. I know you have an investment, Musas Invests, where you're helping women do just that, helping them, not only change their lives, embody their purpose, but build their businesses and grow them. You have such a mind and a heart for really being able to do, I hate to say do it all because it just sounds, but you do it in such a beautiful way, and you're so gifted, and you breathe life into all these projects. And then we haven't even talked about the work that you do as the Shark Tank Colombia. And I think, how do you do? You embody so much wisdom, and I'm wondering what takeaways or lessons learned, because you are so much further on this path, I think, about how to bring a vision to form, and how to do that in a way that still sustains and supports you, where you stay true to that. If that sounds like a fair question, it also sounds like a really big question. But if I get to sit down with you, that's what I want to ask you.
Oh, Lisa, well, thank you for that question. It's a very hard question. It's hard to kind of, I think, sometimes break it down, or, I'll just give it a shot and I'll tell you like a bit of what guides me, how to, as you said, give form to vision and create. And I think, and I've done this, I've always been like an achiever. So I kind of, my earlier part of my life, I was more in, as I said, in my masculine, I was a very driven, and just like relentless, like hard worker, discipline. So for many years, I was in finance, on Wall Street, working with investment funds, like working 12 hours a day. So I come from a very intense work ethic. And I kind of understood how to receive results when you do that. And yes, you can get results. And I kind of have a lot of experience in like creating a plan and then, completing it, right? Which is very much the masculine energy. But it was a misaligned masculine energy. And as we talked about, it had all of these effects, and it left me depleted, So I think in this last era, like these last 7 years, also because I've had a long life where I started working very young. So I've had like several lives in one, I think.
Yes, I can relate to that.
So in this last life, in this new way of creating, it's become more like a game. Like when you infuse it with feminine energy, it starts from the joy. It just begins with like what really gives me pleasure, makes me alive. What if life is so brief and we come here for really a short time? And I've had several reminders throughout my life, people very near to me have passed away, my father, my sister, for, health issues, neurological illnesses and everything. So I've been around very close, to family members who I love, who have passed away, so I get reminded almost every day that life is fleeting and life is very short. And so for me, every day is a gift. Absolutely. And I believe that from that place, I have allowed myself to just connect with whatever really lights me up. And many things. I'm very passionate about many things. I love, art and music. I love creativity. I love walking and hiking in the forest. I love feeling nature. I fill my life with that, which really makes me feel joyful, connected. And from that energy, from that enthusiasm, I believe I connect to the intuitive voice in me, the intuitive visions. And so I really nurture those visions. I take them as real. And I've done a lot of work to kind of write away or journal away, the skeptic that comes in and says, oh, no, that's too ambitious or whatever, or you can't do that. Or I have really been able to work over time to like lower that voice that criticizes or paralyzes or says like, what are you thinking? And so I really over time have been able to really embrace that intuitive voice, that artistic in me, that artist, the voice of the artist that is always looking at possibilities and believing that this can be true. And then I think it's a matter of bringing in good structures, but from a masculine that is more supportive, from a masculine that really, instead of being a judge or a critic or a skeptic, it's a masculine that gives order, that allows something to happen and supports and nurtures the feminine energy. So I think that's the dance that I'm learning. And sometimes many times I've fallen and projects have gone away and I've had to surrender a lot over this time also to what is no longer worth my time or my love. But I think I create everything out of that love and of that desire to heal, to create something new. So I guess
what a beautiful way to even honor the legacy of your father and your sister. That, yes, even being able to move beyond that tragedy and that loss and that surrender and live your life and use that as a guidepost for you, what drives you to create in this way. And I do love the way that you described having that support and that structure, but it's there for what brings you joy, because we are here for such a limited amount of time. And releasing what did you say? You said something that where I need to bring back my energy and give it to things that I love, which I really thought was so powerful. I could listen to you talk all day about this. You were speaking and I was thinking about the fact because you are an artist, you do see, you have so many talents as well. You have this way of just creating and you have music. I've seen your drawings, and I know that you will, when we're in meetings together, you'll be doodling or drawing as a way of processing and letting things flow. And just having witnessed you do that and move through your process and letting yourself create in this way has just been a beautiful way for me to learn from you. but also to see just the way you're integrating this energy and moving forward in this way, I think is such an example that we need now, because we don't have a lot of women in leadership that we can look to and say, oh, that's how you do it. This is new for all of us, right? I mean, we're carving new pathways right now. We don't have a lot of women in leadership to mentor with, to mentor from. They're there, but you've just got to really, really look for them. And in many ways, just create these communities and support each other along the way. As we find other women to go shoulder to shoulder with, as we walk each other through this. I definitely look to you as one of those women that are out there doing the work and leading the way, and to use as a beacon to help us navigate this way forward.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. Just listening, I believe also I've had a lot of pain in my life, and I think when we start to embrace that pain and really go below that pain, go into that discomfort of things and try to find the message behind every moment, instead of, we naturally want to not get our, let's say if a stove is hot and we touch it, of course we're going to burn. But so we naturally, like instinctively, pull back from that experience. But I think that when we start to see that everything is love, even those painful moments can become such powerful moments of truth. And it really, the pain and the surrender becomes a fuel, a medicine, a soul medicine.
Yes.
So I think it's what inspires me to give it my all and know that nothing is for granted. Health is also just being alive and healthy, and being able to walk is enough of a motive to be full of joy. So I just think that I try to cultivate every day something that connects me to that primal joy, and just live from that place.
I think there's so much clarity that comes from a moment like that dark night of the soul. I use that as a reference point so often. And when I feel myself being distracted or possibly pulled off course, like you mentioned, we have our habits and our patterns that love to resurface as we, it's not like we just decide one day we're going to go and live in this new way. We're constantly going to be challenged and slip back into ways. But I think we can catch ourselves a little bit more quickly. We have some tools, we have some support, we know how to kind of pull ourselves back when we begin to fall back into some old patterns, because again, this is still new for us. It's a practice. We're going to constantly be learning and evolving. And as we do that, to have that reference point of that pain, of that dark night, where the clarity was so crystal clear of what truly, truly mattered, and what you call your moment of truth, that's exactly what it is. So anytime, I don't know about you, but I know for me, and it sounds like it's true for you, is that I rely on that point to reference. That's right. This is what I know to be true. This is what I believe. This is what truly matters. And this is what will guide my decisions going forward based on this truth. And what is my next step based off of that?
Yes, I think that's where in those moments is when the intuitive mind is more clear, and that's when we get really the messages from soul, from spirit that we need. And soul and spirit are always there for us. Yeah, so I think that those are really valuable moments to really get clarity on where do we go next. And also our body is a big tool, a big compass, also letting us know if this is right for me, if this is the type of project I should be doing. I take a lot of decisions just from my body, from what I feel in my gut. I even in my investments and in ways forward with the women, although I studied finance and came from that financial background, and I use finance as a tool, but I don't let the numbers dictate my decisions, right? So it's a new way of making decisions. It's a new way of trusting and leaning into what you really feel in your heart. is the next step. And of course we fall, we also make mistakes. It's not infallible, but it's a process that I think every moment is nearing us. It's like cultivating us to become better decision makers and more, and emerge as that feminine leadership paradigm that you were mentioning, you know, of that type of leading the way that we are, I think, collectively being called to bring, you know.
Yeah. And listening to the wisdom of the body, just, I mean, again, speaking my language, it's just, this is so wise. Our bodies know so much, and being able to trust that. So there's that listening, there's that intuition, and you have a concept, or you have something that you think, okay, this feels aligned. And then trusting it and taking action on it is so, until you've done it a few times, it can be really scary, especially in the beginning.
Oh, yes.
If you haven't practiced using that muscle. And, you know, I'm sure even now you know, okay, I recognize this feeling. I know I can trust it. I'm going to follow it this time, you know. But was it always that way? How did that start to feel in your body when you began to say, okay, I'm going to actually start using this to make decisions off of, and feeling it? What does that feeling feel like for you?
Oh, I remember even writing about this moment, about how I felt a turtle that has had a shell her whole life, and then like the shell is no longer there. And I was right in the middle of my healing process, and I had made a conscious decision to let myself be led by my heart, that my life from that moment on was not going to be my logical mind and my previous way of making decisions, but it was really, I was going to listen to my heart and allow my heart to open. And I really felt that vulnerable. It felt so uncomfortable. And it was like that for a few months while the transition, you know, because it was a very deep moment. But it can also be more gradual as we kind of open up to that other way of listening and of being. And just opening my heart and letting myself be vulnerable was so scary at first. And I really felt like completely vulnerable, that I could be attacked at any moment. You know, I just felt it was so awkward. It was so uncomfortable. I felt like shame also, like collective shame. Yeah. And I think we as women, you know, I guess we all resonate with the story of the Scarlet Letter, right? Of like what happens when you do question the system and you do strike out and you do say, you know what, this is no longer working for me. I'm looking for a new path. Yeah. I felt like the big Scarlet Letter was on me, because I was like, you know, the perfect wife, the perfect whatever. And it was not, the perfection story was not working for me. So it does feel like that collective shame, and you feel like guilty at first, I think, for embracing. It's very revolutionary when you do it. Yes. So of course it's scary. Of course. It's scary. Yes.
Oh my goodness. Like, yeah, that reminded me when you were talking about the vulnerability. I remember feeling like, I always described it like a baby deer that's just been born. I did. Yes. I felt very vulnerable. I felt like I was learning to walk all over again. Exactly. I felt that same judgment and expectation, even the expectations that I had on myself of how I thought I should be doing things or should be showing up, and yet none of it felt aligned. And then saying it and naming it and informing people around me that, no, I'm not going to go back to the old way. I'm doing things this way now. I know it looks crazy. I don't know how to justify it, but this is just how it is. And, you know, like you're just kind of going with it and hoping for the best, and but knowing that you've made this promise to yourself and there's no going back on it.
Oh, yes. Oh, there's no going back. It's like the Matrix, when you take the pill and you just say, once you take that pill, you've seen it. It's like a veil has been lifted over your eyes, and you start to see, and you no longer can walk. You can't devolve. You can't go back into that shell. You have to go over that uncomfortable, you know, kind of walking without a shell until you create your new home, your new life, your new habitat.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
wow.
Oh my goodness. So good. So good.
Oh.
So what is next for you, Alejandra?
Well, Lisa, I'm taking this program with a woman who is about up leveling, I think, your business, so I'm taking this program now that is, again, asking very deep questions, and it's also like a mastermind. So I'm going again to the drawing board and reassessing what really makes me passionate and joyful about Musas, and I'm reevaluating my programs. And so I feel very inspired to launch a new program for female entrepreneurs that will be more about how to be an entrepreneur from that alignment with self and with soul, and how to embody that feminine leadership and that balance, so that basically I hope I can bring that gift to other women of going from the vision to the form of their projects, and help guide other women and accompany women in that search. So this will be a new program, and it's kind of on the drawing board right as we speak. And I hope next year I'll be able to launch it and become more into that part of my work. So I'm just very excited. And I also just recently published a book, which was also kind of a tribute to my sister and her life, and it was honoring her. And in that book, I also speak about that personal transformational journey and that feminine leadership. So I hope that the book will open new doors and keep spreading that message of feminine and regenerative leadership.
Absolutely. I have no doubt that it will, and that it will continue to. The words you speak and the way you write they're beautiful, they're touching, they reach right into the soul, and can't help but be transformed by your words, your presence, and your art. And so tell us the name of that book.
It's called, in Spanish, it's Hablando con Dragones, which is like speaking to dragons, speaking to my dragons. Yeah, which is kind of facing those fears, facing that dark night, and understanding how it's behind that fear, and like on the other side of that challenge is really your personal power and your energy to create. So it's a story about kind of that transformation that I had, and from there, like, what's next. It's kind of an invitation for people to go into there and speak to their own dragons.
Oh, I love that. I'm getting a copy, and I need to find myself a translator for it. Oh my goodness. I know it's so good, and I can't wait to dive into it. Before we wrap up our conversation, is there anything on your heart or mind that you'd like to share that feels relevant to leave with our audience today?
Well, Lisa, just feeling so grateful to connect with you, and so excited to keep this conversation. And if anyone wants to know more about my project, they can go into musas.co. Stay in touch, everyone. This is somewhere where we're all supporting each other, and this is a path where, as women, we can really inspire each other for that change. So thank you for your invitation. And it was so great to dive deep and have this really heartfelt conversation with you today, with my sister.
Yes, I could do this all day with you. I love being a part of your life and getting to know you and being able to learn from you and support each other's work. I know we're far from each other, but we're so aligned, and it just speaks to what's happening in the collective, and knowing that we're not alone here, not in the US, not in Colombia, but there is this global connection of sisterhood that is supporting all of us as we navigate this way forward. So grateful for the work that you're doing, and for your support in my life, and the way that I get to know you is such a gift and such a blessing.
Oh, it's great. And I hope everyone's very welcome to come to Colombia and and visit us there.
Yes, that is on my
well.
roadmap. I am taking you up on. Absolutely. I'm so happy to have you here with me. It's an honor to have you tuning in each week. I want you to know that no matter where you're at and no matter what transition you're facing, you are supported and loved. You are whole and you are more than capable as you are in this moment. You always have been. If you're ready to lean into a life of purpose, clarity, and joy through sisterhood, ritual, and intention, join us in the Connected Circle. Consider us your soul squad of women navigating all the transitions of life together. To join now, head over to my website, lisamalia.co, and join the Connected Circle at the very top of the page. I'll see you there. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this show, please share, subscribe, rate, and write a review. This helps the goddess of the algorithm guide other incredible people to find this show and supports the work we do here. It really does make a difference, and I would be so, so grateful. With all my love, have a beautiful day.